HOA Karen called the cops, claiming my pool was a weapon. The judge responded with a shutdown order. Have you ever looked out at your peaceful backyard, heard sirens, and realized someone just accused your pool of being a weapon? Yeah, me neither. Not until HOA Karen waddled into my life. Let's rewind. My name's Jace Reynolds. I'm a structural engineer, a single dad, and the proud owner of a modest, craftsman-style home tucked into a quiet Colorado suburb called Woodridge Pines. It's a place where deer still show up on your lawn and kids ride bikes after dinner. Or at least it was until the HOA elected Karen Delaney as president. Karen was one of those people who made you feel tense just by existing. A wide-bodied, tight-faced tyrant with a permanent frown and a walk that somehow managed to be both wobbly and aggressive. She smelled like expired sunscreen and suspicion. Within weeks of her leadership, she banned chalk drawings on sidewalks, fined a Vietnam vet for hanging his flag too low, and made national headlines for demanding that someone remove a too cheerful mailbox. But none of that prepared me for what she did when I installed a pool. Now, I didn't build a massive pool party paradise. No waterfalls, no lights, just a clean 12 by 24-foot rectangle built to code, paid for by years of saving. I added it for my daughter, Mia, who uses aquatic therapy for her scoliosis. She was ecstatic. It was the first time I'd seen her laugh like that in months. Apparently, laughter was a violation. 2 weeks after the pool was finished, I received a letter from the HOA. Dear Mr. Reynolds, your new structure is suspected of being hazardous. Your backyard pool may violate aerial surveillance regulations due to its reflective potential. Reflective potential? I thought it was a prank. But then came the second letter. The HOA has received reports that your pool could be construed as a large-scale energy collector, which may technically qualify as a passive weapon under community defense clauses. I kid you not, Karen was accusing my daughter's therapy pool of being a weapon. I laughed for about 5 seconds. Then the cops showed up, a full cruiser, 2 officers, one scratching his head, the other holding printed satellite images of my backyard. Karen was right behind them, red-faced, panting, and waving a binder labeled Community Emergency Reports. She looked like she'd run the quarter mile through molasses. This man, she huffed, pointing at me like I'd just detonated something, has constructed a strategic threat to neighborhood cohesion. Ma'am, the officer said slowly, it's a swimming pool. Karen's nostrils flared. It reflects into my guest bedroom window. It causes glare. It could confuse low-flying aircraft. He refused my demand to drain it. So I reported it under subsection 3D of the Safety Prevention Addendum. I looked at the cop. That addendum doesn't even exist. She made it up. The cop sighed. That tracks. They left. I thought it was over. But Karen wasn't done. She called the State Code Enforcement Board. Then she filed for an injunction demanding the court shut down the pool for community protection. That's when I decided to fight back. I gathered every permit, every inspection approval, every medical record related to Mia's therapy. I even had a notarized letter from her doctor explaining why hydrotherapy was critical. But here's where it got better. Twist 1. The judge assigned to the case, Judge Ellison, had a son with cerebral palsy, also treated by aquatic therapy. When Karen took the stand and claimed my pool emitted potentially blinding reflections that could act as a domestic flashbang, the courtroom snorted. Literally, people laughed. Even the clerk couldn't hide her grin. Karen, red and defiant, doubled down. It is not a personal issue. It is a matter of national glare standards. That's when the judge leaned forward and said, Mrs. Delaney, are you telling this court that your neighbor's swimming pool constitutes a weapon of light? Karen adjusted her massive pearl necklace and whispered, technically yes. Twist 2. Turns out Karen had filed 14 similar complaints over the past 3 years, one against a rooftop solar panel, another against a wind chime, and bizarrely one against a neighbor's koi pond that she claimed was a magnet for migratory chaos. The judge raised both eyebrows. Ma'am, you have abused the legal system, harassed your neighbor, and fabricated an HOA clause. I'm not shutting down Mr. Reynolds' pool. I'm shutting down your HOA powers. He slammed the gavel. Case dismissed. Karen stood there, stunned. After the gavel dropped, it was like someone unplugged Karen's entire world. She didn't say a word, just stood there in the courtroom, frozen like a glitchy robot. Her binder of fake HOA weapon policies clutched to her chest like a life jacket on a sinking ship. The judge didn't look back. He just walked out, robes flowing, the sound of his shoes echoing with finality. The rest of us? We burst into applause. But it didn't stop there. Judge Ellison wasn't just satisfied with dismissing the case. He filed a recommendation for official HOA oversight audit citing Karen's abuse of community authority, repeated false legal filings, and emotional harm caused to a child with a medical condition. That triggered an emergency HOA board review. At that meeting held 3 days later in the community rec center, Karen arrived 20 minutes early and barricaded herself behind a folding table. She set up a projector and tried to give a presentation titled Domestic Reflections, the pool threat no one talks about. She made it 4 slides in before the vice president of the board stood up and said, "Karen, sit down. We've seen the court order. You're done." Then they did it. They voted her out. On the spot. 110. Not a single nay. Even her own cousin, who'd been treasurer for years, said, "It's time." Karen stormed out crying. And that should have been the end of it. But poetic justice? It had one more punch to throw. Twist 3? A local reporter had been following the story for weeks. Her article, HOA versus Healing, When Power Trips Go Off the Deep End, went viral overnight. It featured an interview with my daughter Mia, who simply said, "I like swimming. I don't think I'm dangerous." That quote hit like a brick to the heart. Support poured in. Families with special needs kids reached out. Donations came. A local nonprofit offered to build additional therapy access tools for our pool ramp, underwater rail, the works, for free. And then the biggest surprise? Judge Ellison returned. On his day off, he visited our Hamino media. No security, just a man in jeans and a ball cap. He brought a plaque, handed it to Mia, and read it aloud. In honor of resilience, laughter, and the courage to keep swimming. Mia Reynolds, certified, non-weaponized swimmer. We all cried. Even Maverick, our golden retriever, wagged his tail so hard he knocked over the juice tray. Karen? Last I heard, she moved to a different state. Tried to join another HOA board, but her name was already flagged in their community database. Apparently, Weaponized Pool Lady had become something of a legend. And now, our backyard is more than a pool. It's a symbol. We hold summer neighborhood swims. Kids come for lessons. Parents come for peace. And over the gate, a hand-painted wooden sign reads, "Welcome to the splash zone, danger. Excessive joy ahead." So now I ask you, was I wrong to defend our pool, or did Karen just dive headfirst in her own downfall? The end.